Okay guys, we landed in Mincemeat 2. It's time for peak map design. Oh my god, man, why does this keep happening? So they reworked Mincemeat Metalworks, and it's not really what people were hoping. But is there anything salvageable from it? Is it a solid rework at the end of the day? And what are the most important changes? I'm here to break it all down and what we can expect from future reworks. Be sure to subscribe if you enjoy, and let's just jump right into it. So the turf war layout here is very similar to zones, so I'm gonna skip it. So the spawn area actually seemed to get the widest amount of changes for most of the modes. The first main one being this extra little defensive ramp you can be able to use for high ground, as well as the fact that these grades were shrunk down a bit, meaning that it's much easier to push here as an attacking team. I like this kind of change of buffing the attackers and buffing the defenders to make the map a bit easier to move on. On the left side, this car bit is way bigger. This is actually here to remove a route. If you get up here normally in the other modes, this wall isn't paintable, so you have to go around, and they even added an anti-squid roll ramp to get up here. Now there will be a paintable wall here in Rainmaker, but we'll get to that later. They also added this left side extension, which I do think is one of the best parts of this rework. I could actually see defensive weapons going up here, and it makes retaking the left side a lot better. However, you can't climb up here. The only way back up from this drop is still this one sponge, and the only way up from here is still this, so not great. Snipe area is mostly the same. There's these blocks that are just high enough for you not to be able to go on. Outside that, they're about the same. Then we get into the middle of the map. There is some more added cover on the left side, which is nice, but unfortunately, none of this is paintable, and therefore you still have to go through mid. Now, mid is noticeably wider, and on the right side, there is a cool ramp here, which I like. It makes going over here and poking a lot easier rather than having to climb this wall every time. So it gives a bit more ways to kind of try to pressure this right side and threaten to drop. And mid has a pole and a block. Now this is some cover. The zone is also smaller. We'll get to that in a little bit. And there are some cool jumps from this, like you can do that, or you can go up here and you just barely have enough momentum to make it to the car. But I mean, this is still not a great route. It does also allow for this cool jump, which I think is pretty neat at least. And this spot is still great for throwing sprinklers up here. And let me show you how good Reef Slider is on the zone with no special power. So yeah, that's not great. That's basically all the changes for zones. There's a bit more on the other modes, but I mean, so far you can already tell there are some nice adjustments here and there. But in terms of the main problem with the map, you know, the fact that it's pretty narrow and you can't go through these sides is still there. It does help that mid is way wider and just the cover here is a bit better, but realistically, there needed to be another way around. This needed to be a route or potentially even wider around these stacks, which is what people were hoping for. It's definitely a good enough change to make it go from a really bad map to like an okay one, but I use okay by Splatoon 3 standards here. I really wish I could change it. It would be interesting to be in the field of game design and just be able to try to tweak some of these things myself. And honestly, I just find the field of game design really cool, which is why I'm here to tell you about today's sponsor, SNHU. Southern New Hampshire University's online game development program gives you the knowledge and experience to create your own video games and help turn it into an actual career with opportunities for growth. You'll be able to learn how to create flawless user experience by learning successful interface design, as well as the 3 major computer programming languages with C++, C#, and Java, which are the pillars to every great game. These courses will be taught by faculty with real-world experience, so you'll have opportunities to connect with people in the industry. And when you graduate, SNHU will still be there to help you as soon as you begin your job hunt. SNHU is an accredited nonprofit and has radically affordable tuition, and was voted one of the country's most innovative universities by the US News and World Report. If you're interested, you can go to my sponsor at snhu.edu/ProChara to see what the current average annual salary for a game programmer is and learn how you can get started. Thank you so much to SNHU for sponsoring this video, and let's get on to the next mode. Tower control has some of the least amount of changes. There is a ramp here, and part of this wall is paintable, though only the side of it. That's alright, and the open mid does help a little bit. You can even squid surge onto the tower. We do remember this is in the game. This tower jump, which is pretty difficult, is actually still possible, and the tower path is mostly the same. However, the main change is near the second checkpoint area. Due to this grades, you can actually jump up here a lot easier and a lot sooner. However, it comes with a downside. The tower path here goes a lot further away, meaning you can't jump from the second checkpoint area over here as much as you could before. You can jump to this new area they've added, which is okay, and you can use the tower, including barely from a wall jump, to make it up here. So there's some solid tower jump improvements, but for the most part, this is still a pretty weak mode that I think needed more changes, and unfortunately got the least. Now, Rainmaker has the inkable block I mentioned here, so this is still a route you can go to on Rainmaker. That's nice. This part is also still the same, which is probably cool. I think it's it's nice you can bring the rain up here. However, this cover was reduced to just being a little blocked, which I don't think is great. There is this jump, which is nice to go across without using the grates, and in fact, the grates are a lot smaller in general, which means you can use this part to go across more quickly, which is nice. And this checkpoint jump is still here. In fact, they've extended the terrain to make it a little bit more obvious that this is here. That's cool. Outside of that, not really much changes here either. And finally is Clam Blitz. Most of the map goes back to the zones layout, but there is a very nice change, which is this ramp instead of the awkward block structure it was before, as well as this side being the same as in Rainmaker, which makes pushing a whole lot easier, which I think is nice. It's gonna definitely feel a lot better than it did before, but I mean, still mincemeat clams. I think there still needed to be more done here. And that kind of describes my thoughts on the map as a whole. Now look, for Splatoon 3 standards, this is okay. Like, it turned it from a bad map into probably middle of the pack, but also middle of the pack in Splatoon 3 standards is not good. That is a bad map design. And honestly, I think we should have seen the signs of this sooner. Looking back at it, the fact that Tower, Rain, and Clam Blitz Maki didn't get more drastic changes should have probably been a bit of a sign that the maps weren't going to change that much. In fact, I think the number one takeaway is the change of what maps we should want to be reworked. I've seen a lot of people want some of the worst stages like Eeltail or Hammerhead changed. However, I think their best reworks are maps that are already pretty good and could be a little bit better. That's what Maki Zones was. So I think you actually want changes to maps like Mako Mart, Umami Ruins, or Crablet Capital, for instance. Stages that already have a lot more going for them, and these slight expansions and changes on their routes and cover would actually make more substantial of a difference. As of now, I think turning one of the most hated casual maps into a middle tier stage is still a positive change, but like with the patch, I have higher standards in terms of how I would actually rate these, even if my expectations are pretty low. So in that regard, I gotta say, it's a pretty mediocre rework. I won't mind playing on it as much in this game, but I really wish we had something better, so it's still pretty disappointing. With that being said, let me know what you think of the Mincemeat rework in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time.